This is our Christmas tree train experiment. In the past years, we put the train on the floor below the tree. We used hardboard paint with flat white house paint and taped up the joints with white duct tape. That worked pretty good. But when you tried to enhance the train with houses and other things, then there's no room for presents. And also, people have a tendency to accidentally step on the train. I had been thinking about how to put the train in the tree instead of under the tree. On an artificial tree, they come apart, and where the branches meet the trunk, there's hinges, and the hinges stick out. And I saw somebody on YouTube that made a small engaged circle on the higher part of the tree, and he just set a piece of plywood on top of the part that sticks out where the hinges are for the limbs. But the trouble is, if you use a piece of plywood big enough for an HO train like this one, then it gets heavy and it's really hard to find a piece of plywood that's not warped. So the problem was, how do I make something light enough to be sturdy and hold up and still let the tree hold it up? My solution to the problem to keep it light and stiff was to use a 1-inch piece of foam and a very thin piece of plywood on both sides. I wanted to cover the whole thing, so I used a spray, and I used contact cement. I used this here, but it took 2 cans of this, but it's kind of expensive, so there may be something that would be cheaper than this. I also had problems finding very thin plywood. The 1/8 inch plywood that we found was all worked up, and so we wound up finding the very cheap wood wall paneling worked very good. And you glue the good side of the foam, and you glue one on both sides, and then you set something flat on it, something flat and heavy, and let it sit there for just a short time, and it'll glue it all together, and it's very stiff and very light. I also had to make a wood clamp to hold the board down and hold it steady. This clamps around the trunk of the tree, and it's about 6 by 7 and about 1.5 inches tall. And I used 1/4 inch all threads all the way through, and I drilled about a 2-inch hole in the middle to clamp onto the trunk of the tree, but other trees would be different sizes. This board is made with 18 radius HO track. It takes 12 pieces to make a circle. The whole board is about 3'6" wide. I put little holes in it, and they have these rail joiners that have wires on them. You can get them at a hobby shop. And that's how I get the electricity to the track. And I made the holes big enough so I could stuff the wire back in the hole. I actually soldered, I had a little short wire on the rail joint, and soldered it to another piece of flexible wire underneath. And I put the wire on before I glued the bottom on. And the hole comes out over by the trunk, and it runs down under the sheet and hooks onto the power pack right there. And I use speaker wire because it's all together. And this is our experiment, and we'll see how it goes. Seems to be working.